Today is Tuesday, Parashat Nitzavim Vayelech, and we're learning from the Chok Israel in the Gemara of today. The Gemara quotes Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, and this is actually what we were about to read here. The statement of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair is the basis for the famous book Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just, written by the Ramchal Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. So the basis of that book is this quote from Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. It's brought also in another place. Here it's quoted from Masechet Sotah. The same quote, a little bit more steps. There's an extra step here that is not mentioned in this Chok Israel portion that you find in Masechet Avodah Zarah. And what it speaks about is certain steps that a person should follow as he progresses and raises himself up in levels of spirituality. So, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair in Masechet Avodah Zarah, it starts with saying that the Torah mevi'ah lideh zehirut, that the person learning Torah brings him to be careful about his actions. And to be careful about his actions is very important. If a person was not careful, you could liken it to a person being blindfolded driving on the freeway. That would be crazy. Or a person walking next to a raging current and not paying attention to where he's walking. That way also a person that walks around life without being careful with the steps that he takes and with the choices that he makes, that would be very wrong. So Zehirut is a very important first step, is to be careful with your actions, to be deliberate in what you do, not to do things just what happens to be. So Zehirut, carefulness, being careful, is step number one. Then the Zehirut will bring you to Zrizut. What is Zrizut? Zrizut is alacrity, is diligence, is the opposite of laziness, is when a mitzvah comes your way, you do it, you don't procrastinate. So that's the next step. Then Zrizut mevi'ah lideh nekiyut. Then alacrity, diligence, brings you to cleanliness. We're speaking here about cleanliness of thoughts. We're speaking about not cleanliness of the cleanliness of actions. In other words, you're very careful with every aspect of your action. You can do a mitzvah in a plain way, in it's just getting away with the basic minimum, or in a kiyut, to be very careful and with every aspect. That's cleanliness that he's speaking about here. Then nekiyut mevi'ah lideh ta'ora. Then cleanliness will lead a person to purity. We're speaking about purity of the mind, purity of the thoughts, purity of what you're looking at. So we have here step by step. First being careful, then having diligence, then having cleanliness, being very careful with aspects, then of mitzvot, then ta'ora, purity of mind, purity of thoughts, purity of what you see, purity of what you say. Ta'ara mevi'ah lideh prishut. And if you persist in that type of purity, then it brings you to restraint. Restraint is to restrain oneself even in those things that are permissible. A person should eat kosher food, obvious. So you could take the most kosher steak, and if you have 5 of them for lunch, that would not be restraint. That would be gluttony. So restraint is to know how to be poresh, to separate yourself from many different pleasures in this world that a person doesn't need to indulge in so much of it. So the opposite of indulgence, restraint, is the next step in spirituality. Prishut mevi'ah lideh kedusha. So if you have restraint and you persist in it, it will bring you to kedusha, which means holiness. It will raise you to a level of holiness. And then after that, kedusha mevi'ah lideh anava. Person who's holy, it will bring him to be humble. Notice, humility is something that the person would know his spot, that he's not so, it's the opposite of haughtiness, of being conceited. So holiness will bring a person to anava. So anava, humility, is a very high level. Va'anava mevi'ah lideh yirat chet. When a person is anav, is humble, it brings him to fear sin, to be fearing of sin, to be very careful to not sin, is to have the kind of fear of sinning, is a level that is pretty high. that comes after the level of humility. Virat chet mevi'ah lidei chasidut. And being afraid of sinning brings a person to chasidut, to being a pious person. Chasidut mevi'ah lidei ruach hakodesh. And chasidut, being pious, being careful even with those things that are not necessarily given to every person, adding more strict observance. And in Chassidut also, by the way, is being very careful with your relationship with others. It includes in it the word chesed also, which means kindness to others. Chassidut mevi'ah lidei ruach hakodesh. Person persists in Chassidut, in piety, it'll bring him to ruach hakodesh, to the divine spirit, to be able to have a special divine inspiration. And then from that point on, that person will reach such a level that will have the ability of resurrecting the dead. And the Gemara here closes by Tchiyat HaMetim Bade Al Yedei Eliyahu Zachur Letov. Amen. They will come when the Mashiach comes. There will be also Tchiyat HaMetim. So these step by step that Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair lists here, they're listed also in another Gemara, and these are the basis of the book that we actually learn in our synagogue every Wednesday evening, Mesilat Yesharim by the Ramchal. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.